Good evening, everybody. You know, there's a family affair that happened here at the African Leadership Group, and we are here being recorded with our own dear Professor Majama, and we want to thank him for the amazing work that he's doing. But we are here for a very, very special conversation that we want to have with our community, knowing that the month of May is a mental health month. But before we dive deep into the conversation, I just want to give you some background. As you know about the African Leadership Group, the vision and mission is to really focus on facilitating the professional integration of the African diaspora. And we do that by focusing on three pillars: social impact, economic impact, and educational impact. We are very, very proud of being the typical grassroots organization that really focuses on meeting the community where they have their needs. And we have 13 initiatives, and one of them is the Health and Wellness Committee that are really playing a very vital role on the work that we are doing around health education, health information, and health resources, knowing that we have a lot of members in our community that do not have access to insurance. And in our culture, we only go see the doctor when something goes wrong, especially with a lot of issue around mental health where we are not educated and not having a lot of information about it and not knowing how to deal with it. So we want to bring experts, we want to bring community members, and most importantly, we want to bring people that serve on the Health and Wellness Committee. And today here I am joined by Abdul Pesima. Not only he is the chair of the Health and Wellness Committee, but also he serves as a board of director. So Abdullah, I want to start by thanking you for your service and everything that you are doing in the community. But I want to turn it over to you for you to just introduce yourself and share a little bit of background about the work of the Health and Wellness Committee and introduce the other members from your committee that you have and tell the community what's going to be happening next.
Okay, thank you very much, Papa. Really appreciate that. As he said, my name is Abdul Pesima, and I'm the chair for the Health and Wellness Initiative. And the basic aim and goals of the Health and Wellness Initiative is that we want to improve the health and well-being of the African diaspora communities. You know, and how do we intend to do that? We intend to do that by facilitating greater access to critical services and quality health cares in our strategic partnership. As you can see, as you also know, now that African Leadership Group, we have various people that are involved in the African Leadership Group. Various communities are also involved in that. So we're trying to create partnership in that area. And lastly, we also want to educate our people, building and bringing awareness in our various communities about key health issues and preventive measures that we can take in those communities. That brings us to today, what we have here today. We are celebrating the Mental Health Month next month in May, and the whole month of May has been taken as a Mental Health Month. And today we're going to be having the youth conversation on gun violence and mental health. But before then, I think we'd like to introduce our members here, committee members here, ALG Health and Wellness Committee members here. Yes.
I'm Susan Levine. I recently relocated to Denver with my husband, who is an immigrant from Senegal, West Africa. And I have become acutely aware of the needs and goals and dreams of the immigrant African community. So it is an honor to be able to sit on this committee and make an impact and to share in something that's so well organized and can give back to the community.
My name is Vera. I'm from Liberia, West Africa, and I'm also a registered nurse. And I'm very, very happy to be here today. The reason we're here is to bring awareness to our immigrant community and our minority community about mental health. As May is coming up, it's going to be a mental health month. We want to bring awareness to these family, friends and relatives and the community as a whole about mental health, because a lot of the time we as immigrants, we do not really pay attention to mental health. Mental health is it's not a illness or anything that exists in the immigrant community. If you have a child or family member or friends that having a mental health crisis, we consider that as, oh, he's being foolish, or she's just acting up. She just want to have a behavior. He just want to be this, and we don't consider that. And so today we're here to bring awareness to people, especially the parents of young children in school, and with everything that going on in the school, everything that going on around the world, we want to encourage parents, especially immigrants and minority parents, to be able to help their children with mental health. Well, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. We're going to transition now into bringing in the young people that we have here today.
Awesome. Hello, my name is Usman Ba, better known around here as Uzi, the education coordinator here with the African Leadership Group. I am very ecstatic about the conversation we're about to have tonight with our amazing youth. As you see next to me here, we have some of the students in our youth empowerment program. These are amazing students that are doing work in the schoolhouse or also outside the schoolhouse, and we're just excited to hear from them. A lot of time we talk about mental health and trauma and things that go around the school, but we never really hear from the actual kids. And today is the opportunity we hear the voices of the kids. Sometimes are left out of these conversations. I'm ecstatic to hear what they have to say and just what we're going to learn today. So I'll pass it over to the first student here.
Hi, my name is Mahmoud. I'm attending George Washington High School.
What grade are you in?
I'm a 10th grader.
Hi, my name is Famaja. I'm a freshman at Colorado Early Colleges, and I've been part of the African Leadership Group for quite some time now.
Hi, my name is Javan Lubenga. I'm a 10th grader at CRA Compassion Road Academy.
My name is Hulai Sai. I am a junior at Cape Northeast Denver Leadership Academy, and I'm also part of the African Leadership Group Youth.
Wonderful. Thank you all, and welcome to this program today. We're going to be talking about youth conversation on gun violence and mental health. There are 4 areas that we want to concentrate on today. We want to start with social media bullying questions, and then we also wanted to look into generational conflict and all of that, okay? Let's begin with the social media bullying aspect, right? First question is, what springs to your mind when you hear the word cyberbullying? We want to make it open, so anybody want to start? Well, you can.
Feel free. We want you to be comfortable, whatever you want us to talk about in terms of, just relax.
Well, for me, when I hear the word cyberbullying, for me, what I think of is when someone is freely posting or sharing how they feel on the internet, another person is feeling the need to attack that person's feelings or emotions or values just out of hatred, and that's that.
Me personally, when I think of cyberbullying, I think of social isolation, anxiety, harassment, and I think these are all like feelings that people who have personally gone through like cyberbullying feel, and it's really can be really dejecting.
Yeah, I think I'm put it very well.
Awesome. Just to add on to that, what would you do if you were ever cyberbullied? What would any of you do in that situation if you were in that situation for yourself?
Block the person.
I
would block the person.
You'll block the person? Okay.
To be honest, for me, it really won't affect me because everyone has their own opinions. They can think what they want. I think what I want.
Yeah, I agree with Mamadou. For me, I was raised in a way where I don't have confidence in values, where I don't let what people think of me affect me. So I would just let it slide, brush it on the rug, and move on.
For me, I think it's easier to say that if you were put in that position, you would act a certain way, but reality is there has been a lot of people who were like really confident, and then that has completely shattered them. So I think the best way I could cope is like talk to someone that I trust, a parent, like talk to other fellow students about how I feel and just bring that into light rather than just trying to push it under the rug, because if I don't really do something about it, someone else might experience that, and their experiences might be completely different in how I would react.
Well, Thank you. I mean, that's a great point that you mentioned, and I think it's very important to have that support system. And a lot of times, you guys, right now, technology is in front of your face, from the Facebook, Instagram, social media, TikTok. How do you balance that? Just knowing it exists, how do you balance that to take time away from that to cope with anything that happens cyberbullying, in terms of cyberbullying?
I mean, I feel like you have to have like the boundaries of when oh, you've been on social media for too long, or you've been scrolling on your screen for too long. Like, take the time to go spend time with family, friends, like read a book, like you have to take the time to do other activities rather than scrolling on TikTok or doing streaks on Snap, because at the end of the day, like, if that becomes your life, it's going to consume you, and that will be all you're worried about. And making sure you have the right filter, and making sure that you're appealing to your friends and followers. So I feel like you have to have the boundaries to take time for yourself and like do self-care in a way.
Have any of you been or not actually being bullied as such, but you know someone that has been bullied, and how do you think a person can reacted? Do you know of anybody that has been bullied before, cyberbullied?
I feel like everyone's reaction is different. Like Ami said, like for her, she would want to talk to somebody, while as for me, like I wouldn't let it affect me. Like certain people react differently to the circumstances of how like in-depth the bullying is, how hard it is for them to cope with it, how hard it hits them. So I feel like it's different reactions depending on the optics and the circumstances.
Javan, I want to hear from you. Anything in regards to cyberbullying that you want to touch base on?
Me personally, I've never known anyone who's been cyberbullied, and I myself have never been, so I can't really relate much to it. Yeah.
Awesome. Do you guys think internet companies are just these corporations that run these organizations such as Facebook, Snapchat? Do you think they should be held? There should be a social responsibility for them when things come down as such as cyberbullying for students or kids or anybody in that nature that feels that should there be a social responsibilities for those platforms that they should take on?
I feel like to some extent yes, and to some extent no, because at the end of the day, the company was founded or branded to bring like positivity and light and to make other people happy. And some people are just negative. You can't control how people react to things or how people act. So I feel like if someone were to report like cyberbullying like through the app, then yes, the app should take the responsibility to ban that person from the app. But to like some people try to blame it all on the app and say, oh, the app's bad, the app. And it's not just the app's fault. It's depending on the people who are let into the app.
I personally believe that these social media platforms should be held accountable to a certain extent as well, just because the algorithm, the way it's built, I think they definitely have the tools to like take preventative measures to ensure that it's a safe space, just because like as we're shifting more towards like the technological era, there's so many more kids who are like exposed to like social media, to all these things that previous generations were not exposed to, and that's taking like a huge toll on kids' mental health, as we've been seeing with like the rates of depression have gone higher, suicidal rates have gone higher, and a lot of it has to do with social media. So I think that these people who are designing these like websites, these social media platforms should definitely take preventative measures to ensure that it's a safe space, or at least try to do something, come up with like, I don't know, subcoding stuff to like ensure that that's not happening, and just see the trends and all of that.
Okay, that's really good. I mean, these are all wonderful things that you guys have said. What do you think is the difference between cyberbullying and being bullied in school? For example, going to school and being bullied in school by friends or by classmates.
The difference to me, there's some people that will never say the stuff they say online in person, because they're a whole different person. Online, they're protected behind a screen. The person can't do anything to you.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're bullying in like person, the person's able to fight back, come at them, some people be bullying without showing their faces, like hiding their names, be anonymous, and yeah.
I feel like it's easier to like protect yourself when it comes to like online rather than in person, because some people don't have the opportunity to do homeschool or do online school. Some people have to go in person. So, and some people don't feel comfortable to go talk to like the counselors or the deans or the principal and express their feelings because they feel like they'll be called a snitch or whatever else. But when you're behind a screen, if you like have the confidence or feel like the means to block the person or delete the app entirely, you can protect yourself more. But when you're at school, it's like a whole different environment. It's like every man, woman for themselves in a way.
This is a follow-up question. Good point. And you brought up the point where they're behind the screens. Do you think, in terms of just cyberbullying and compared to being in person in school, schools taking measures for that? Should school take measures into stopping cyberbullying when it's happening in their schoolhouse?
Some schools, they do the bare minimum. Like they don't, like they'll just say, oh, we'll suspend them for a week, but you're not helping the parents make the decision to like tell their kids to delete the app right away. And they'll use the excuse of, oh, we don't want to overstep or tell parents how to raise their kids. And that's completely respectable, but at some point, when it comes to a student having multiple offenses of cyberbullying or bullying in person, whichever the case may be, at some point you have to draw the line and say maybe this student or kid shouldn't have social media, maybe they shouldn't have a phone. Maybe certain measures should be put in place like screen time or something so they can't cyberbully and make other kids feel a certain type of way about themselves.
Okay, thank you guys very, very much. That's really good. Let's give them a hand, please, okay? Good. Now let's go to the second point that we want to deal with, generational conflict. What do you think is generational conflict?
I think the generational conflict is the conflicts between like the different generations. For example, the older generation versus the newer generation, and a lot of the times that's due to the fact that like certain generations have like different sets of beliefs that are like deeply rooted in how they grew up or like their environment and all of that, and then they tend to like clash. But we see this now with like all the movements that are the activism that's going on right now. This generation is like unapologetically activist. Meanwhile, like the older generation kind of sees that as like a threat, like overstepping the boundaries, as well as like with technology and all of that. It's so much. Our voices are so much more amplified, and the older generation kind of fears for that because they feel like, I don't know, sometimes like it's doing too much and it needs to be like toned down a little bit, whereas like they don't really understand and they come to like a clash.
Okay. Anybody else want to add to that?
Yeah, to add on to what Ami said, like I feel like older generations have more conservative values and views and beliefs, and like when they see that these younger generations are breaking away from those values and beliefs and changing them and bending the rules, I wouldn't say fear is the right word. Well, maybe fear, because they're losing their ways and they feel like certain traditions won't be passed along in the future. And I feel like that's what brings generational like conflict and clashes between generations.
Awesome. Great point. And I mean, Fama, you guys brought up great points in terms of the generational conflict, how the older generation thinks. As we dive into just the mental health and the mental process of that, how do you guys feel? Are you supported by the older generation about dealing with mental health? How's that conflict and how older generation deals with mental health compared to your generation dealing with mental health? Because you say you guys are out and spoken about it, where older generations don't really talk much and more conservative to their mental well-being.
I feel like it more so depends on like the society and the community we're raised in. Like, because a lot of people in our generation are very outspoken. They say how they're feeling when they're feeling it, while others, they struggle to put their feelings on the table and explain what's hurting them and what's not. So I feel like it depends on the community we're raised in, because some of our parents or some of our like family members don't believe in mental health. They don't believe in therapy. And when you say, oh, I'm feeling this, and this way, they'll be like, oh, you're just being a teenager or you're just being dramatic. So I feel like it depends on the community you're raised in and the people you have surrounding you.
You guys have anything you want to add?
No promise that it.
Okay. So, how is generational conflict depicted in the area of gun violence and mental health? I think you talked about mental health a little bit, but what about gun violence? How is it,
Like,
depicted?
between the generations, I feel like back in the day, like years ago, like gun violence wasn't such a big thing. Like I know some kids, like some of my teachers now, they'll be telling us stories about how they could freely like walk into school with like their pocket knives or like their guns, and they would have the freedom to do so. And none of the teachers or administrators thought it was such a big deal because they didn't have the issues of people trying to shoot up the schools or people trying to attack their classmates at that time during that era. But now we have the issues of you have to worry about when you go into school every day, oh, is someone going to come do a certain thing because of their feelings are hurt or because like certain things are happening. And I also feel like it depends on how, because in education back then, I feel like teachers were more caring and more like sensitive and empathetic to how their students were feeling. And they had more like empathy when it came to a student saying, I didn't have time to get so-and-so done. But now when you go to a teacher, your situation, some teachers don't have any empathy at all. And that makes certain students feel the type of way like they have no other choices rather than to shoot up the school or be violent or do things they would regret in the future.
For me, I think it's really scary because I feel like our generation is so much more desensitized to the violence that is going on just because it's like a reoccurring event, and it's like we've become numb to it in a sense that we see it happening so much. It's not like a problem anymore. It's something that we have to learn to deal with. And teachers as well are also like they're like taking in this mindset. They're becoming more desensitized to it as well, whereas the older generation is more sensitive towards it because back then it was unheard of to like come pull up to a school and then have with like a gun, or to even have like young kids, especially teenagers, have like such easy access to like weapons and all of that. So for them it's like unheard of, which is why, like what she brought up, they have so much more empathy towards that. Whereas as we grew up with this, we're so used to this, we've become desensitized and numb to this that it's not even like really much of a problem anymore, and we're just trying to like live and just live day by day, just surviving. But the fear is still there, obviously, but it's just not as prevalent as it was before.
Surviving. You hear that, guys? Live day by day, just surviving, Is that the way you guys are supposed to live? Just trying to survive?
Not at all, but it's like Ami said, it's become like the day-to-day normal for some people, like just trying to go to school and get through having like a good day without having to deal with bullying, harassment. Like it's mainly about surviving in this world now, and it shouldn't be that way at all.
I hear you guys. I really hear you in your voice. And you guys touched on something. We'll get back to gun violence here shortly and just becoming numb to it. Do you feel heard? Do you feel much pressure to follow somebody else's expectations that doesn't align with yours? Do you feel heard?
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, can you expand on the question?
In terms of, do you feel heard, and then the second part of the question, do you feel pressure like from your parents? They have these certain expectations of you. Does that put a lot of pressure on you to mentally as well and physically to achieve those? And does it, in terms of just generational conflict, just the pressure of having your parents, especially you guys, some of you guys coming from an African household, how's that look like? And that pressure?
I feel like at the end of the day, all of our parents mean well, and they just want to see us succeed and do well in life and be happy because of the way they were raised. They didn't have all the luxuries that we have nowadays. So I feel like they just want to see us succeed, and sometimes they can show it in like a forceful or stressful way. But I feel like at the end of the day, they mean well, but still it puts a lot of pressure and stress on us to do well because we don't want to disappoint our parents. We want to make our parents happy, and it just makes life more stressful in a way.
I personally feel really lucky to have like been brought up from a household that's like really like caring, and where I don't feel scared to like say what I believe in, just because that's who my parents are. And I believe that is, especially in like immigrant household, it's not something that's like very common, as a lot of people feel like their voices are like silenced, or they cannot be themselves around their parents, to the fear that their parents would not understand. But I think it's important to know that our parents have gone through so much to give us, like what you said, the luxuries that we have, and they've been through so much. Like, even though sometimes there's like clashes, they will understand, and they usually want to understand, but it's just like sometimes they're not given that space because growing up it wasn't like readily available to them, like the whole concept of like mental health discussion and all of that. But I feel really lucky to have been brought up from a household that's like really caring in that sense.
When I hear from my fellas, you guys have been quiet for the last two conversations. Yes, you guys are welcome to join. You guys feel pressure?
I have some friends that want to like take the next level in sports, but parents want them to go to college, get a job that will actually pay, that's confirmed that they can study for, and they got that pressure because now they won't be able to pursue what they really want to do in life.
So I know at first you asked, like, do we feel heard? I can say, like, it depends. Like, I know when I would have conversations with my dad and I'd say, you know, I want to be a chef. You know, he didn't want to say, like, oh, that's not possible, or, you know, that's not realistic, but I could tell he wanted me to be something more than that. I tell him, oh, you know, I'm going to be a mathematician, and his face would light up.
All right, I'll keep it as that, unless anybody want to share. But again, it's your welcome.
Well, for me, the event that I can actually vividly remember, like feeling trauma from, was the fire that happened like 3 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah, I don't know if that might trigger something, but it was something that I saw like firsthand. Like I was there when it happened, and I saw it all, and I know like it wasn't like something that's like directly affected my family. Like it did, but then seeing all of that, I don't know, it was like something really awakening. It was really, really scary, because like months after that I was like struggling with all of that. Like I had all these thoughts and all of that, and it was like a really, really scary moment.
To expand on what Ami said relating to the Joel family fire, like I feel like, yes, it wasn't in our households directly, but it was in our community, like the Senegalese community, and I feel like it touched all of us because we lost like a part of us in such like a tragic way. Like it wasn't like a death of natural cause, like it was a very tragic death, and I feel like it touched our whole community. And when it comes to those kind of things where it's like a big like thing that happens to the whole community and touches everyone, I feel like that relates heavily to trauma, because it's a trauma you share with the whole community. So I feel like in that way that's like not a better kind of trauma, but it's like it helps to cope because you can relate with other people. You can sit down and talk about it without feeling judgment, because someone else may not understand, but you have it with the community and they can relate to you and help you come out of that trauma.
Yeah. For those of you who are not aware of what went on a few years ago, it had to do with a Senegalese family that was put on, the whole home and house was put on fire by several teenagers. Are they teenagers or something?
Yes.
You know, and that was a big thing here in the, not only among the Senegalese community, but also among the immigrant communities, I would say. You know, it was really, really tough for all of us, you know, at that time. You know, and what do you think, though, are warning signs that someone might be in a mental health crisis?
I feel like some warning signs are when like a person changes like or the way they act in a particular way. Like when you see someone who's always feeling bubbly and comes to school or work or wherever it may be, feeling bubbly and just being their normal selves, happy, energetic, like they take very good care of themselves, they have certain hobbies that they really enjoy. Like I feel like as soon as you see that person start to drop those things and start to like let go of themselves in a way, those are very big like trigger signs and warning signs of like you should go and make sure that person is doing okay. Because if you have a friend who's coming to school every day, energetic, bubbly, and all of a sudden he or she starts being very like low and their energy isn't there and they start like letting their grades slip in a way like they used to care about their education and now it's not there anymore. I feel like those are certain warning signs where you should take the time to sit back and realize like, hey, maybe my friend is going through something, I should check on them and make sure everything's okay.
Do you guys have a family member that you can go to and talk to about any trauma or any mental, anything you want to talk to about? You want to just vent sometime or just someone that you could trust to talk to about the situations you're in. Do you guys feel like you have somebody like that in your life?
Well, for me personally, I know that person is my sister, my little sister. She's 17, and she's always been there for me through everything. We're very close in age, so we're always able to talk to each other about anything we're going through, laugh together, cry together. So whenever I personally want to vent about something, the first person I would go to is my older sister.
Do you guys think there's somewhere in a place in your school that you could go to that you feel safe to talk about trauma or any mental or anything that you're experiencing that you feel safe at school talking to someone in the schoolhouse? Like a counselor, teacher? Okay.
Not only you, I mean, what about your friends? What about your classmates? Do you feel confident and easily able to go to somebody, and talk to somebody? Do you think there is a place where they can really talk to somebody in the school, in your schools,
For my school, it's easy to access a therapist. You're able to just walk in. We also have a Denver Health clinic part of the school. You're also able to walk in there if you need to talk to someone.
But do you feel like the students will be able to trust the counselors or the...
Yes, because everything, anything that says there, I think it's by law, but I'm not sure. You won't be able to tell your parents, tell students. There's like personal, just you and the person you're talking to.
Awesome. You want to shift to the last?
Yes, go on.
I know.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Again, I know that was a tough conversation to be had just in terms of trauma, and thank you guys for being vulnerable in this space and talking to us as well. And we want to come back to the gun violence questions. I know you guys have been impacted dearly in the Denver metro area, especially if you've been in Denver public schools, the events that happen at East, the events you guys are seeing on social media, just about school shootings that are happening. And really, I just want to hear what are your thoughts about the recent school shootings. What are your thoughts about gun violence in our community in general? What are your thoughts? It's an open table discussion. Feel comfortable to just share.
I think, at least for DPS, they need to do more than just adding police officers to the campus. I have many friends that are scared to come to school because they're police officers, scared to be profiled because they're black.
Yeah, to add on to what Moby said, there's way more that needs to be done than just adding the police officers or the security guards to the school. And relating to the last East shooting, the particular student who was found guilty of shooting up the school, he had a history of certain activities, and I feel like no one took the time to check in on that student and make sure he was doing okay after what he went through, because certain things trigger I feel like certain things have to happen for someone to decide to make that kind of decision, and no one took the time to check on that student and actually talk to him. They just said, oh, you're a bad kid, you did all these kind of things, and you just want to bring harm to everyone else, but no one sat down to make sure he was okay and sat down to see what trauma he's been through in his past life. So I feel like it's not just on the student. It's the teachers, the administrators have blame to take too. The parents, everyone has blame to take in that situation.
You guys mentioned about police officers, Is that what the schools are doing now, trying to add more police officers in the schools? What would you recommend?
For my school, if they have to leave the police officers, just leave it at the campus. For us, when we go off campus for lunch, we always see the police officers following us straight to the place we go for lunch.
That's really scary,
That's really scary.
Very scary,
You wanted to add something about gun violence real quick? I know you.
Well, honestly, what she said, like, she hit it on the point. I think that a lot of times we're so focused on saying that this person is to blame, but there's always events that leads to someone like committing certain acts. And seeing what he did, he himself, like, you could tell that he was going through a lot of things, and no one really took the time to see what this student was going through, like what trauma he might have had, like what triggered him, why was he acting the way he was acting. But people are so quick to like put blames on someone, be like, oh, they have a history of this. But if you know someone has a history of something, the trends are always there. You need to take the time and then just see, like, why is this student acting the way they're supposed to act. And what he said about the police officers thing, I think it's really, really scary, especially seeing like what has been going on with like the Black Lives Matter movement, police violence and all of that. I don't think a lot of students will feel comfortable going to a school that has like a police officer, an armed police officer at that, who's like monitoring, like watching, like safeguarding security and all of that. It's really scary, especially as like people of color. If you feel like they're following you, or they have like a certain certain biases towards like certain people, it's really scary. Like if in an environment where you don't feel safe, putting in measures that's gonna like make that even worse, it's not really a solution, rather than just like putting a band-aid on something and then hoping that it would like eventually just,
And to what Momdu said, like, to add on, like, it's like Mommy said, it's very scary. Like, when you look at the whole Trayvon Martin situation, he was just trying to walk home from the store when the police officers attacked him and shot him and did all that. So imagine you're just going off campus to get a meal, simply, and you have a police officer following you. That triggers you, and you're scared of what happens. Like, you're scared that you might lose your life, and it comes back to, like, just thinking about how you're going to survive each day when you have police officers at every corner, every classroom in your school.
Joanne, you want to say something? What are your thoughts about it?
I mean, I definitely think, like, what they've all been saying about checking in with people, that's very important. But also, like, the access to weapons. I think that's also a very big issue that you and me and, people may think we can't do much about it, but we really can. And it's just, I think it's the fact that access to weapons are just so, it's so easy. It's so easy. And, because it's so easy, like, there's this mentality that is my protection. So when it gets to, like, gosh, I don't want to cry. But, when it gets to a point where, like, okay, the police are following me, or, I believe someone's following me, I believe someone wants to hurt me, the mentality that this weapon is, my protection, I can only imagine. I don't own a weapon, but if someone was to own a weapon and, it was just like, okay, I feel I'm in danger. That's, I'm sorry.
Okay. But do you guys think there's anybody in the school or people that you can talk to if you realize that the police or security people are following students or around?
We had a walkout for the East shooting a couple weeks ago. We had administrators there for that walkout. It was on on a news channel. There was a student that took the mic and said something. She said she doesn't feel safe with these officers here. And yeah, the administrators have heard this all. We still haven't seen any change to them. They're still there.
And to add on to what he said, there was also an article that was released that said one of the students who actually spoke up was actually like the police they kind of like detained that student, and it was also like a student of color, and this was like at the Capitol. And imagine if like as a student you go and you try to like have your voice heard, and then that is the reaction you get. It's really not very ethical, and it's not really doing anything.
Mm-hmm. I've heard from some of my friends who go to some public high schools that when they express to their administrators or to like elected officials that they didn't feel comfortable with the police officers in the school, they would just tell them, well, you don't have a choice. This was the measures we're putting in place. You need to suck it up because we're doing this for you. And I feel like, what kind of empathy, how are you expecting for that person to respect you and sit there and understand your choice when you're just shutting down how they feel and just telling them you're disregarding everything they're telling you. Even if you genuinely can't do anything about it, I feel like at some point there's a certain respect and empathy you should have for your students and say, I completely understand where you're coming from. There's nothing we can do about it at this time, but here's some things you can look forward to. Mm-hmm. Like, express different possible solutions, but you're just shutting them down, and that's not doing anything to help the situation. And it leads back to students feeling like their teachers don't care, which leads them to make irrational decisions.
Wow. As we wrap up, just any last word, any last thing you want to say before we close it here? Anything? All right. I just want to thank you guys deeply for being here and for being vulnerable and being in this space. I just want to tell you guys your voices are being heard. We're listening. And I hope anybody that's viewing this, elected officials, community members, parents, the kids have spoken. They have told us what they're going through. Their mental breakdowns, trauma, generational conflict, and gun violence. And I'm asking you guys, if you're listening, what are we going to do? Because this keeps happening as a cycle and nothing's being done. They gave us some concrete solutions that we could work with. And I just want you guys that are, again, listening, please listen to the kids. They know what they're going through. And again, you guys, thank you so much for being vulnerable in this space today. Thank you for speaking your truths. And we're excited. It's just part of the series. And I'll turn it over to Abdul to talk about the upcoming events.
Okay, we're going to be having what we call summary call to action, right? Mm-hmm. And that's going to be done actually with. Let me explain first. We have 4 parts of this whole conversation about mental health, and in celebration of the Mental Health Month, May. The first part is today, which is the youth conversation on gun violence and mental health. The second part is going to be. Second part going to be a conversation with parents on gun violence and mental health, which is going to happen next week also. And then the third part is the breaking the stigma of mental health, which is actually the theme for this month of May. May is a mental health month, breaking the stigma of mental health. And then finally, we're going to be having coping skills and resources for youth and how parents can help. And in the third and the fourth parts of this presentations, we're going to be having professionals that will be here, and we'll all be talking together, trying to see how we can be able to bring out solid resolutions and solutions to the issues of mental health and gun violence that we are facing in our various communities. We thank you so much for coming here today. We appreciate that.